Stay tuned for more after our feature.
Ah yes, this unlocks some memories for you. The Ant Bully, a 2006 animated fantasy film directed by John A. Davis, the man behind Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius and its follow-up TV show, and produced by Tom Hanks. Yes, that Tom Hanks. I'll just say right away, this film, it ain't that bad. I mean, it's not great, it's honestly not that good. But, I mean, it's a fun, decent time waster if you just want to watch some random, obscure animated film from your childhood that you didn't really see that much. I love the ensemble, as weird as it is. Why is Nicolas Cage in this movie, by the way? And the animation quality has greatly improved since Jimmy Neutron, since this was from the same studio, DNA Productions. This was definitely a good start for them to actually be a competent figure in the computer animation gold rush. Although, unfortunately, this would ultimately be their last official production, as before the film was released, massive layoffs were had at the studio because of projected poor box office returns. Yep. And thus effectively killing other future plans for DNA Productions, probably including other feature films and of course the canned Jimmy Neutron Season 4. And because of that, this whole story sort of overshadowed the movie itself. And I can kinda see why, honestly. So, I guess we'll just talk about this production for a little bit, all the things you need to know, and how this killed DNA Productions. To begin, this was a 1999 book written by children's illustrator and author John Nichol. This is probably his most well-known work, as I have not seen or read any of his other books, and I haven't even read this one, so there you go. It sort of follows a similar plot structure to the movie, you know, weird kid gets shrunk down to the size of an ant by a wizard and has to perform tedious labor, much like the other ants, in order to understand the diligence that they have to go through and how terrible his actions were towards them. He learns the lesson, he gets back to human size, and yeah, that's about it. There are some minor details here and there that are changed in the movie, mostly with the kid's personality being from just some weirdo to kind of being somewhat of a jerk, and the bully that picks on the kid actually does end up being shrunk to the size of an ant to go through the same lesson. Now, this doesn't seem like a lot, but Tom Hanks, who used to read it to one of his kids every night, thought that this would make for a good animated film, probably wanting to prove Pixar that A Bug's Life could actually be a good movie. I'm kidding, you can stop typing. God, you guys are just so passionate about this crap, huh? I didn't think it actually cared. And in the early 2000s, Tom Hanks had grown to become a big fan of Jimmy Neutron and wanted to work with creator John A. Davis, and pitched him the idea of making the Ant Bully into a feature film. Initially, John A. Davis was skeptical because, well, the last thing he'd want to do is add to that infamous drama of A Bug's Life and ants. But the more he thought about it, the more he thought, so what? It's more like Incredible Shrinking Man than it is at those other movies, so what's really the harm? Executive producer Keith Alcorn, who was also involved with Jimmy Neutron, felt the same way at first, and eventually decided, hey, if we make it different enough, then it'll be okay. And in this case, they decided to go for an approach that was more akin to something like the aforementioned Incredible Shrinking Man, with more emphasis on the fantasy and kind of weird alien world of the ant life, making this probably a lot more in tune with the actual ecosystem and behavioral traits of ants than the other two movies. Now, with approval from John A. Davis and Keith Alcorn, Tom Hanks' pitch was officially put into production, and honestly, there really isn't much to go off of in terms of the production. There weren't any particular stories or any drama or any particular successes. It just kind of went along well. The best thing I could really say is all the technology they used. They rendered the film on DNA Productions' 14,000 CPU render farm, managed by the open source SunGrid engine job scheduler. I read that off of Wikipedia, because, I mean, how else am I gonna fucking remember to say it, right? Other softwares used included but are not limited to Maya, Massive, and Pixar's own RenderMan. Wow, Tom Hanks really was the spy in this case, wasn't he? And around this time, several promotional materials was made as well, including these animated shorts done in the same animation style as Jimmy Neutron. And these sort of give a good idea of the possibility that if the film were successful, it could have also spawned a TV show, much like Jimmy Neutron, and if DNA Productions had made more movies after this, they would probably make more TV shows reusing these assets. Honestly, I do feel like more CGI animated films should definitely use this approach more when making their animated shows, rather than just doubling down and just just making 2D productions like Big Hero 6 or Tangled. However, one of the bigger things in the production is that during this time, obviously they had to change the story up to better fit the cinematic structure. This was the same deal for the first Shrek and eventually Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. And I'm assuming Tom Hanks and producing partner Gary Goetzman didn't want to have another Polar Express situation where they really didn't expand much on the source material and just sort of adapt the story as is. Ironically, that was also Warner Brothers. Go figure. As a result, it does sort of have this weird kind of moral compass and odd character motivations that, well, I didn't really notice them that much. I could definitely see how this would bother a lot of people, especially given how forgiving the ants are at the end, and especially Hova really believing in this kid. I don't know. There's a whole other video on it. You could go check it out. It's pretty good. But wait, where does this lead to the whole death of DNA Productions aspect? Well, we're here now. This film had a budget of over $50 million, which obviously doesn't sound like that much compared to the other competition, but this was definitely larger than Jimmy Neutron's measly $30 million budget. And because of this larger revenue, and obviously the inclusion of all these major stars, this was definitely anticipated by Warner Brothers to be one of their big blockbuster successes. So, of course, they would try to go all out and make it a summer release alongside their other anticipated Superman Returns. Yeah, that was a good movie, right? And in select theaters was actually shown in IMAX 3D, making this one of the very few animated films to get this treatment. Whoop-de-freaking-do. I must also note this was actually a very big win for members of the 3D motion picture community, as they believe that converting an animated film to full 3D stereo for IMAX was definitely a much easier process than with live actors with special effects and green screens and all that stuff. It does also make me wonder why Disney also doesn't do this with some of their other big animated films, or other studios really attempt it. Well, given how this film performed, I think we might know why. This film made exactly $55 million worldwide at the box office, which, okay, it broke even, but at the same time, this doesn't exactly mean the domestic gross in the US. And because Warner Brothers projected that this film would not do well as expected, DNA Productions caught wind and immediately settled layoffs for many of the employees right before the film was released, and as a result, the studio up and shut down entirely. This meant no other future projects would be made at the studio, and of course, as most of you already know, this was what killed the planned Jimmy Neutron Season 4. Although given how ultra serious and very off Jimmy Neutron's fourth season would have been, emphasizing a lot more on the Jimmy-Cindy relationship, which is fine, but, I mean, does it really need the front and center focus as this, like, dramatic thing? And just having this obscenely dark tone with evil Jimmy coming back, and it just would have been a big mess, and would have truly solidified Jimmy Neutron as one of the many Nicktoons that just overstayed its welcome. And in a way, you could kind of thank the Ant Bully for making Jimmy Neutron end gracefully as it did, if it may have seemed abrupt and without having any closure. Although it is a real shame, knowing how this would have easily put DNA Pictures on the map against other studios like DreamWorks or Pixar. The quality was getting a lot better, they were getting more prolific stars to round out the main cast rather than just sticking with their usual voice actors, and they even had an IMAX 3D release in select theaters, so that's gotta be something worth noting. But as it stands, this is just a weird, forgotten animated film that is often used for clickbait by a few YouTubers, and also just kind of something that is in the back burner of your memory. And some bozo like myself will go on about the production history or whatever. That's what killed DNA Productions. A promising idea from a prolific actor turned into the immediate death sentence for a rather respectable studio. You know, it is still pretty funny to me to think that Woody from Toy Story basically backstabbed Pixar, or at least tried to, with his own movie. I don't know, it's just an amusing thought. Leaf Razor, Valkyria, Whoop-Doo, MD the Dude, Blackjack, Nightingale Wednesday Nightmare, Unkale, Manny Paredes, Edward Haas, H.R. Hoffman, Who Else But Zane, YouTube Milkwad. Okay. Wait, where are the credits? Oh, I have to talk about this, huh? As of this video, we are no longer going to be doing comment of the day for a number of reasons, but the main one being that it mostly slows down the production of these videos, and in order for us to really be on the game and release these videos ahead of schedule for all of your enjoyment, we will have to nix these. We hope you understand this and hopefully are not super bummed out from this decision. This is for the benefit of making higher quality videos and bringing these out in a more efficient time frame. Anyway, that's all for the video, and enjoy the remaining credits. There they are.